So let me tell you a little story. It was about 20 years ago or so. Stephanie and I bought our second house, and we had moved from Minnesota, and it was like 100 degrees outside. I had a U-Haul full of all of our stuff. We had 3 kids that were young at the time, a cage full of hamsters or gerbils, a dog, you name it. It was going on that day. And we had to come into the closing table, similar to the one I'm sitting at today. And we had documents to sign, like you always do. And sometimes that stack of documents is really intimidating, especially to those who don't understand all of the things that are on the documents. But we got to the lending part, and the lender pushed under my nose, all of the documents and all the things. And then he looks at Stephanie and I, and he says, also, I didn't get a chance to tell you before we got to the closing table today, but in order to get you the rate that you want, you're going to have to pay a full point today in order to get that rate. And at that time, I was a school teacher. I didn't have any idea what terms that he was talking to me about. What was the point? Why am I having to pay an extra point sitting here today? What does that mean? What are the results of that? I didn't know what was going on. And if you get to know me, you'll know that I just start crying when I'm upset or angry and don't know what's going on. So that's just my reaction. So this is the quickest way to clear a table at the closing is to start crying. So I started crying. Everybody looked at me like I had 7 heads, and everybody vacated the room but the lender and Stefan and I. And he was able to explain to me what was going on, what the terms meant, and did a very good job of explaining those things to me. And I was like, okay, great. I now understand. So today's video is for you, my client, to help you prevent being frustrated at a closing table and not understanding all those terms that are in front of you. So let's get started with today's video right now. What in the world do you need to know if you are buying or selling a home and you have this whole closing disclosure in front of you and you really don't know what all these numbers mean? So today I brought a friend in the biz, Tammy Lilly with Lilly Title and Settlements. Tammy, I think you are the only independently run
That's correct.
company.
I opened up about 10 years ago, and I'm the only independently owned title company.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I've been doing it for 20 years.
Awesome. So I brought her in today to help go through this, what a closing disclosure is and what all those numbers really do mean. And so we're going to kind of talk through that with you guys. All right, Tammy. So today we are here discussing a closing disclosure.
Yes. And
we have a pretend buyer who's going to be purchasing a $400,000 house. That's what they've agreed to pay for it. And it's going to be it's not going to be approximately, it's going to be a 5% down, and their interest rate on the mortgage is 6.75%. So I've gotten them to this point, and then you get to take over and you get to talk about this closing disclosure that they're going to have to sign at the table.
so the closing disclosure is based on your loan amount and then your interest rate, and then it goes through the fees. So on the first page, it would have the sales price at the $400,000, and then the interest rate at the 6.75. Is that what you said?
Yeah, it's 6.75%.
And then it's going to break down the escrows, which are the homeowner's insurance, and the property taxes, which are based on a monthly. So if the property taxes are $6,000, they divide that out by the 12 months to come up with a monthly amount of $630 for 3 months. So it
Okay.
closing disclosure. And the way they figure out the escrows is if you're closing today. So if we were closing today, they would actually be collecting property taxes that are due in December, because Augusta County semi-annually.
Okay.
So they're due in June and December.
Okay.
So then they would put like 3 months. That way they'd have a little bit of a cushion for next year when they're due.
Okay.
So that's how they
So in
figure.
case they go up or anything like that,
Up or
they've
down.
got something
Right.
added in there.
Correct. So there's
Okay.
that cushion there. And then also on a settlement statement, of course, you'll have your lender fees, which are normally an admin fee, an origination fee, appraisal fee, credit fee. And then, of course, you'd have your title fees, which is our fee. Like for me, I charge a flat fee of $7.95.
Okay.
And out of my fee, I pay for the title search, the title binder, the closing protection letter. Every company is different. Most of them charge those fees individually. For me, it was just easier to wrap it into one. It makes it simpler on the closing disclosure.
It looks cleaner.
Yes. And then you'd have the reporting fees, which are based off the $400,000. And then if your loan amounts to $400,000, your recording fees for the deed of trust would be based off that $400,000 also.
Okay.
All right.
So there's actually there's three categories really on the prepaid, on that closing disclosure. So we have the taxes, we have the interest that's being collected, and the homeowner's insurance. And so something that I want to make sure that the buyers do understand is all over the country, we always pay for our homeowner's insurance a year forward. So if your homeowner's insurance was $1,000, you're going to pay for that up front, but then your lender is going to also collect a monthly fee, and that's your escrow amount. So they're going to take that $1,000, divide it by 12, and that's how much they're going to collect every month to pay for the next year. So we always have a year ahead on our homeowner's insurance.
Right.
But taxes are a little different.
Yes.
So what happens with taxes?
So with taxes, like I said, they're due in June and December in Augusta County. And then, so when you collect the taxes, most of the times the seller has them paid in advance unless it's early so if we were closing in January, they probably won't be paid yet. So we would prorate those from January 1st till the end of June.
Okay.
Since it runs from January to June and then July to the end of December.
Okay.
And like I said, they divide the amount out by the 12 months and then it would collect for the month.
Okay. So, and we always pay taxes a year in arrears too.
Yes.
So that's why they're collecting those and escrowing those taxes so that they're always available, at least that 3-month cushion in case those numbers do go up or down. So the taxes are collected a year in arrears, homeowners insurance a year ahead. And that can, sometimes upset people, and they're like, why are we doing it this way? Yeah. That's just the way we do it. That's the way your lender does it. Let's talk about that interest rate too. So the first mortgage payment's not due until February 1st, so you're not going to be a whole month. So some buyers are like, is it more advantageous for me to close at the beginning of the month, the end of the month, the middle of the month? Do you have any advice for a buyer when they should be closing?
Most people like to close towards the end of the month because they're not paying as much interest from. So if we closed on the 29th and end of the month is the 30th, they're only paying 1 day's interest. So most people like to close, and it saves them money if they're closing towards the end of the month.
So we would probably advise this buyer to close as close to the end of the month as possible so they're not paying extra interest on that loan that they're getting.
Correct.
So the other thing that a buyer may or may not know is, when is my first payment due on that mortgage payment?
So everybody considers it a free month.
It's not.
It's not.
Front.
Right. So the interest that you actually pay is going towards that. So, but if we were closing, we're in, what month are we in?
We're in October. I know it's crazy.
I should know that.
October 5th.
So if we're closing this month, they would have November off, and their first payment would be December 1st.
Okay.
So, and then they usually have a 15-day grace period. Depending on the type of loan, I have seen somewhere it's 10-day grace period.
Okay, so let's talk about title fees.
Okay.
And that is your department. So on average, how much is those title fees going to be per side? Does the buyer pay all those title fees? Does the seller pay all those title fees? How does that work?
So normally the buyer pays the title fees. So like I said, I charge a flat fee of $7.95. And then if you purchase owner's title insurance is based, I believe it's $2 per $1,000.
Okay.
So that's how they figure out the amount for. So on the $400,000, that's how they would figure out the amount for what's owed for owner's title insurance. Now in Virginia, owner's title insurance is optional. Lender's title insurance, however, is not optional.
Okay.
It's required for all loans.
Okay.
So that varies there. Some people choose not to purchase owner's title insurance. I'm one of those people that I strongly suggest purchasing it because you just don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, so let's give them a scenario on something that could happen where they would definitely want that insurance.
An example that always sticks out in my mind, I had one of my continuing ed classes, and they were talking about how a gentleman was in the Army and he was deployed in Afghanistan, and when he came home, there was a whole new family living in his house.
Oh, you're kidding.
No, they said his wife and I guess she had a boyfriend and decided to sell the house, and he had no clue. So when he came home, they had luckily purchased owner's title insurance. So they gave him half the money and went after her and the gentleman that forged the documents. So, but that's a reason why you should do it. You just don't know.
No, you don't.
You know, and I know all companies are different. I know for me, I do a 60-year title search.
Okay.
And in my title search, there's names that could be spelled incorrectly. So you don't pick up a judgment because the name's spelled wrong.
Okay.
There's, forgery, fraud. In other instances, if you have the seller has a credit line and we pay off the credit line at closing and ask them to close it out and they don't, and they continue to use the credit line, they would start a foreclosure process on the house.
The house.
Because that's where the loan was registered with. So your owner's title insurance, of course, would help with that.
And protect that. So what does the buyer have to do if they find out that there's been something fraudulent going on?
So they would have to reach out to either whoever they used for a closing agent to file a claim, or they could reach out to the title insurance company independently and file a claim.
So they could just contact you and say there's something going on here that's not right. And
that is correct.
What do we have to do next?
Yeah. So actually, a lot of people do reach out to me.
Do they?
Yes.
Okay.
When they don't know what the process is. So I'll tell them what the process is.
Okay. Good. So why does the lender want title insurance?
The lender wants title insurance for their protection. If they would have to foreclose on the property, they want to know that it's marketable if they have to foreclose to sell it.
Okay. So they want a clear title to it. They don't want any clouds on it. No.
Correct.
Nobody owing any money. Okay.
And that's the other thing. Like with the subordination, lenders want to be in a first place position in case they do have to foreclose, so that their deed of trust is in first position and they're going to be guaranteed the foreclosure.
Okay. So let's talk about the next thing on the closing disclosure, those lender fees. So there's all these boxes on their closing disclosure. And so in box A, they're going to find typically.
Yeah. And on page 2, the first section of that, it's going to be the origination fee, the technology fee, the admin fee. The next section is section B, which is usually your appraisal, credit report, technology fees. Section C would be the title section, which would be like Lily title and settlement fee, closing protection fee. And depending on how each one does it, if there's a title search fee, they put that in that section. Termite, which is a seller fee.
I was going to say, in the state of Virginia, sellers do pay for the termite unless there is something else on that contract that says differently.
Correct.
Okay. And we also make the sellers pay for any repairs or treatment that needs to be done for that termite. I know I get that question quite often.
Yes.
So.
And then also on the seller side, they would have the deed prep fee, grantor's tax, which is 1% of the sales price.
Okay.
They would have the real estate commissions, which we discussed earlier. And depending on who they're closing with, if they close with an attorney or a title company, those fees can range between $250 and $1,000.
Okay. And they're going to want to know how much is like that appraisal fee too.
Yes.
Typically.
Appraisal fees range, but most of the time I see them about $650 at average, and that's usually on the buyer side.
Hey, Tammy, great. I mean, we've gone over so many things on this closing disclosure, and we've been able to explain these things to the buyer. So they're buying a $400,000 house, but we've explained a lot. But let's kind of summarize it in bullet form for them.
To break it down, on $400,000 with their 5% down, that would be $20,000.
Okay.
And then with closing costs, which are your lender fees, title fees, recording fees, you're probably looking at about another $10,000 total.
Okay.
So the total amount that they would have to bring to closing would be about $30,000.
Okay. So roughly about $30,000 on a $400,000 house with 5% down and a 6.75% interest rate. So that breakdown pretty accurate, around $30,000 they're going to be bringing. So, all right, and their lender's gone over this with them before that they get to you, right?
Correct. So they will get a loan estimate in the very beginning of the process, and their lender goes over that with them.
Okay.
And the loan estimate is normally a little bit higher than what they actually end up having to bring at closing.
Which, because those lenders don't want to tell their buyers that they're actually bringing less to the table than they really are. They'd rather overestimate it than underestimate it. And I know the lenders that I've worked with in the past, they like to overestimate, like say your homeowner's insurance, because it's your choice on who you pick for your homeowner's insurance. So they like to kind of overestimate that.
Exactly.
And then what you really do have to bring to the table is a little less than what they estimated. So
better to be over.
It's better to be over than under. Better to give you the shock and then go, oh, hey, we actually are bringing less to the table. Okay, Tammy, you have given us a lot of information and gone over this closing disclosure so well, and I appreciate that very much. But is there anything else that you want to tell our audience regarding anything that you see that buyers may not understand when they get to the table?
Well, as you said earlier about prepaids, that is one thing that a lot of clients do not understand. Usually when there's a prepaid, they're paying points for a lower interest rate, which is the simplest format to put it. The other problem that I see that a lot of people don't understand escrows, which we went over earlier also.
Right.
But if anybody ever has questions about escrows, they can always call me and I can go over them with them again.
Okay. I appreciate that very much. So I hope you have found today's video helpful in explaining some things to you. We are always here to answer any questions that you may have about a closing disclosure or about title companies and what all is entailed as far as your title insurance and what all that means. And I want to thank you, Tammy, and Lily Title and Settlement for helping us today in explaining these things.
You're very welcome. Thanks for asking me to help out. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I hope you found today's video talking about closing disclosures helpful. As I said at the beginning of the video, I do not want you to have a bad experience at a closing table. Even though it ended up becoming a good experience for me because I became a realtor as a result of it, I just don't want you to have a bad experience. So please do not hesitate to pick up that phone, give us a call, send us a text, send us an email. We will be happy to discuss anything with you regarding purchasing your home and what all are the steps that are going to happen that gets you to the closing table. And we want you to have a good experience, and we want you to have as smooth an experience as possible. Till next time, we'll see you around town.